So we are currently headed to the Robbinsdale Supercharger right by my house. Being that right now we are at 5% charge, and I need to charge to 100% overnight in order to start the road trip out well. So 10 minutes tonight at the Supercharger, we'll be set, and then 5 a.m. in the morning we're heading out. First stop will be the new Happy Lanes Trail in Albert Lea, Minnesota. Never a good warning to see, but I'm sure I'll be seeing it often this trip. Came inside Hy-Vee while I'm charging at the Robbinsdale, Minnesota Supercharger. Came to get the best glass cleaner that money can buy. Always a good thing to have this in the car on a road trip. It's nice to be able to clean it at Superchargers. Well, not off to the greatest start here. Went into Hy-Vee and got the glass cleaner, but came out, still charging pretty slow, 52 kilowatts. Looks like we've got a pretty cold pack. Started out around 60 degrees actually, so not ideal for peak supercharging, especially on a 70D. So probably wait it out till it gets to about 25% and call it good. Time to do the pre-road trip maintenance. Normally in a gas car you'd be changing the oil and doing all sorts of things, but in a Tesla the only thing I'm doing, topping off my windshield washer fluid with some de-icer. That's what you got to show you guys. Here's my Model S, 135,000 miles on it. About to embark cross country to Phoenix from Minneapolis, Minnesota. Well, here we are about to depart. Looks like it's about 5:40 a.m. Central Standard Time here. Just about to pull out of the garage. We are at 96% charge, which is where it hit charge completed. So it is what it is. We're headed to Albert Lea, the new Happy Trails Lane Supercharger. So that's about 100 miles away, and we'll go from there. Just want to show you guys where we're starting at. 134,775 miles on my Model S 70D. It is a 2015. I am on the latest software, so we will see how it does. We are here at the Happy Trails Lane Supercharger in Albert Lea, Minnesota. Just about to depart here, ran in, used the restroom, and then headed to Dow's, Iowa. Well, I almost just got run off the road by a semi. I'm gonna see if I can pull that footage from the dash cam, but sun is out. We're headed to Dow's, Iowa. It is currently 10 degrees outside Fahrenheit. Not great efficiency, a little over 400 watt hours per mile, cruising about 80 miles an hour. And at least it's kind of pretty out. Just got the sunglasses on, listening to some Overcrest podcast, catching up since I am actually a couple months behind on that. But yeah, we're on the road, making good time, a little over 100 miles down and about 1,700 left to go. So we are headed to Dow's, Iowa. Car's doing a little bit of a weird thing. The MCU, the connectivity went out, so I did an MCU reset two scroll wheel reset, and now on the energy display it's showing this line here as if the data is cut off, but it's only doing that on the 30-mile view, not the 5 or the 15. So a little bit strange, not sure what to make of that, so we'll see if it resolves itself or how it goes. Back on the road from Dow's, Iowa, headed to West Des Moines. Had about a 37-minute stop, pretty uneventful, just hung out. Got my T-Mobile test drive hotspot set up so I can try that out on the drive and just keep driving. Driving through Iowa is about as boring as it gets. It's just a bunch of flat farmland, pretty much straight highway. I mean, we're going pretty much straight south until we get to Des Moines, then we're going a little bit west and then back straight south towards Kansas City. Just arrived at the West Des Moines Supercharger in Iowa. Looks like we did about 90 miles, 350 watt hours per mile. It's gonna get out, plug in. It is at a Hy-Vee, so that's always a nice location to be at for supercharging. So yeah, just gonna relax, maybe watch some TV or just hang out. Pretty decent speed in West Des Moines. It doesn't look that great, but this is actually pretty darn good for my Model S 70D. Usually my rule of thumb is if the kilowatt of the charge rate plus my battery percentage is roughly 100, then that's about the best it's going to get. Pack is nice and warm, 104 cell temp average. So this is pretty much peak for my car, unfortunately. It's not the greatest, but it is what it is, and I have free supercharging, so I can't complain too much. Alright, just getting ready to depart from West Des Moines, Iowa to head to Bethany, Missouri. The car is saying, let's see here, 15 more minutes till we can depart, but the car is also saying that we'll arrive there with 5%, which I am totally fine with. And based on how I've been driving, I should have 128 miles of range, and it is only 97 miles to Bethany, Missouri, so I'm gonna unplug and head on out. So it's probably hard to tell, but there are snow flurries coming down. We're currently in Ridgeway, Missouri, so much for trying to avoid weather by going the southern route, since apparently there's a winter storm warning in Oklahoma and Texas. So it is what it is. Looks like we are about 10 minutes out from Bethany, Missouri. Never been to this one, so this is a new supercharger for me, and check it out. We made it to Bethany, Missouri. Pulled in at 8% there. Perfectly fine with me. Pretty good efficiency, about 325 watt hours per mile. Let's see for the whole trip. About 313 for that whole leg. Almost 100 miles, 98.8. Yet again, another supercharger with no one else here, so gonna get out, plug in, make the most of the time. It is snowing here, which is a little annoying. So yeah, here we are, car in all its beauty. I'll kind of give you guys a tour of what I've got going on here too. Since I am hauling stuff out to Arizona, I've actually got the entire back full of stuff, so it's a loaded car and we're still making good time, good efficiency. Car is still surprisingly clean, but yeah, here we go. It's at a come and go, and I'm going to be here and go. Just wanted to show you guys what we've got going on here. So right now we are in Bethany, Missouri, right there. The car currently wants us to go actually to an urban supercharger in Kansas City, which I don't think really makes sense. When I was routing earlier, it was actually having me go through St. Joseph, Missouri, and then down kind of past Kansas City, because this is actually faster just driving from St. Joseph to Topeka, even skipping charging in Kansas or in Kansas City, being that even though there's 4 in that metro area, the ones that are easily off the highway, they're actually urban superchargers, 72 kilowatts, versus this is the 150, which is way off the path of where we need to be. So there's actually 2 150, but both of them are quite a bit out of the way. So what I'm going to be doing is actually rerouting through St. Joseph, and then from St. Joseph, we're not going to charge in Kansas City area unless we absolutely have to, which I don't think we will, and then go to Topeka. So it seems kind of strange, but it's going to be faster than going to an urban supercharger. We are about to head back out on the road, headed to St. Joseph, Missouri. Looks like it's projecting 5%. We've got 94 as projected range based on previous driving. And we've got 70 miles to go, so we are more than good. 70 miles, and I'm at 49%. Let's show you guys this tiny town. So there's really not a whole lot here. It's like just little small town America. We've got some gas stations, some truck stops. There is a car wash there. Automatic wash. But otherwise, not really much of anything. So we are in Osborne, Missouri, just passing through some of these wind farms all around here. So probably some of the power that we're using to power the Tesla for this road trip are coming from those. So it's kind of cool to see it. All right, just pulled into the St. Joseph supercharger in Missouri still. Pulled in at 3%, so cutting it a little close, but that was because I missed an exit, had to turn around, but we made it just fine. 6 miles projected range, 320 watt hours per mile. 76 miles. That was supposed to be only 70 miles, but because I missed the exit, I had to turn around and go back. We're about 441 miles in. Yet again, I am the only person at this supercharger. This has kind of a weird setup, which threw me off at first, but I realized quickly it's so that you can charge from both sides, which was actually kind of cool. And they have a pull-in here, and if you had to, being that it uses both sides, with a trailer you could just pull up, and yes, you'd block some stalls, but you wouldn't be blocking a ton of them. So gonna plug in here. It's nice that in case one of these is down for whatever reason, either one of these would reach my car, so that's kind of handy. But let's get charged up here. I think this is gonna be one of the longer charges to be able to make it to the next one. It's at another Hy-Vee, and you really can't go wrong with Hy-Vee. Might run in and grab some coffee or see what else is around here. Time to hit the road. All right, well, here we are in Topeka, Kansas. We pulled in at 2% charge, so cutting it a little close, but I'm not too worried about it. Pack is nice and warm, 101 degrees. This is going to be a bit of a long haul. It is showing negative 82% to Wichita, which is our next step. So we have to gain quite a bit of charge. I'm gonna be here for a while, so I'll probably actually get some food inside Arby's, which is where we are right now. Not sure if you can tell by the menu. It's kind of a strange location for a supercharger. There's a Home Depot, Dick's Sporting Goods over there, but not really amenities that I would normally want to have at a supercharger, but I guess we're good. So I'll figure it out and kill an hour and 15 minutes. It's nice to see that my car still does about 110 kilowatt. It was at 111. Pretty nice with 135,000 miles on the car. It hasn't been degraded too much. It does taper pretty quickly, but that's just normal on these older packs, and especially on the 350 volt versus 400 volt packs. All right, still waiting at the Topeka, Kansas supercharger. Just figured I'd take the opportunity to kind of go over what I bring with me on a road trip. I actually did a Whole Foods Amazon Prime 2-hour delivery, and that's how I got some snacks yesterday because I didn't want to have to go to a grocery store. So can't go wrong with some healthy-ish Oreos. Annie's fruit snacks, these are delicious. Organic mango slices. Dried fruit is always a good choice for road trips. Some sweet and tangy barbecue trail mix stuff. It's good to get the protein from some of the nuts. And then I also got some apple cinnamon flavored cereal bars. And I already actually ate some vegan jerky that I had, and that was delicious. It's also very important to keep hydrated. So Kirkland water is my go-to. I know it's not great for the environment, but I'm a little bit of a stickler on water taste. Also keep it cooler here. Tried these for the first time. Highball Energy, I had the sparkling water one earlier. It was not my favorite, but it had caffeine, so I guess it was fine. And then before I left, I actually made a pretty large smoothie in my Vitamix. Lots of spinach, lots of fruit, very good tasting, and filled up 2 of these thermo flasks, 24 ounce, just to have some like nutritional stuff on the way. And these keep it cold for quite a while. I've got some ice packs and some more water and stuff in the cooler, but just figured I'd share that. I tend to like to stick to things with higher protein kind of lower sugar or more natural sugar just to avoid the crash. Also, while we're waiting here, I figured I would mention some of the tips I kind of have for comfort on a road trip. I do actually have a charging profile. Like I mentioned, I have a charging profile set up. I don't know why that's not focusing. But basically, it reclines the seat for me, makes it a little easier, as well as puts the steering wheel all the way in, all the way up. I don't normally do easy entry, but I do like this, especially if I pull out my laptop while I'm parked and charging. It gives a lot more room. It reclines the seat for me. It makes it a lot more comfortable. Another trick I have is having comfortable shoes for driving. These are just Brooks running shoes, but they have this kind of curved back heel area, which definitely adds comfort while you're driving. Even with autopilot, you're still resting your foot a lot, kind of on that heel area. And a lot of shoes have kind of a built-in, kind of a big heel that sticks out. And I'm a tall guy, so I have pretty big feet. And those just aren't comfortable in most cars, just being that they're not, most foot areas or footwell areas aren't designed for that. Well, we are set to go in Topeka, Kansas. Had to charge up to 90%, took about an hour, 20 minutes, which is definitely longer than I would like to stop, but did run in and grab some Arby's. Looks like the drive-thru's picking up there. Looks like it added 55 kilowatt hours, so quite a bit actually. So time to unplug, head to Wichita. Get this show on the road and get going. This is going to be one of the longest jaunts, 141 miles, so showing that we'll ride with 5%. Definitely kind of wishing I had a Model 3 right about now, but it is what it is. I've got my car, and I guess free supercharging makes up for the slower supercharging, kind of, sort of. So here we go. It'll be dark next time I see you in Wichita. Made it to Wichita, Kansas. Pulled in at 3%. There were a couple times that it was saying I would not make it. I actually got the you are out of range of known chargers, plan your next charging stop, but drafted a semi for a little bit, and then there was actually some traffic, so I just slowed down for that, and instead of speeding and trying to weave, I just followed along. So we made it, plugged in. The supercharger is actually at an Applebee's, which is also a little strange, but there's a Taco Bell right nearby that actually sounds pretty great right about now. We are at 8 p.m., so been on the road about 13 hours and still going strong. This is the last supercharger before Oklahoma and then Texas. Let's just see how this ramps. So ramping pretty strong. We'll probably hit 111 very briefly, and then it'll taper down. That's usually what it does. Maybe 112? Oh, there we go. And the usual taper down right away, but it does hit that 111 peak and then goes from there. But considering it's free and my car has over 135,000 miles, I'm not complaining too much. So that last leg was 145 miles, so we went from 90% down to 3%, and here we are. So I parked my car at the supercharger. We are in Wichita, Kansas, but I didn't really feel like Applebee's, which is where the supercharger is at, because that takes long, and quite honestly, the food is not good at all. So I am headed to Taco Bell, which is about a block away. About to cross this kind of main road here. Luckily there is a crosswalk, which is kind of surprising. I'm a vegetarian, so Applebee's doesn't really have options, but Taco Bell actually does. So here we go. It's pretty chilly out, but I want food and I've got some time to kill, so here we go. It's kind of dark out. It is 8:25 at night, but seems like pretty safe area, so I'm not too worried about it. Well, we made it to Perry, Oklahoma. I'm doing things right if I get this pop-up. We actually didn't even push it that hard. Made it at 10%. It's 30 degrees out. I feel like the cold is just chasing me as I go across the country. It's actually kind of frustrating, but it is what it is. Next stop is Oklahoma City. Looks like this is gonna be a fairly quick stop, 30 minutes, so that means probably 25 with me playing it safe, or a little riskier on the buffer, but also playing it safe as necessary. So let's plug in here. Another pull-in, another supercharger with no one else here. This one is just at a gas station, Subway, truck stop. There's a McDonald's and like an ice cream shop over there, so I might walk over there. This parking lot had some really nasty potholes as I pulled in, so had to dodge those, but car is looking really good still. Surprisingly clean considering the bit of snow, a little bit of very light rain that we encountered, but I'm pretty happy with it. Car's doing fantastic, very efficient even with the entire back full of stuff. These tires are nice and smooth. I like the Aero wheels. It's quiet. I've been listening to Overcrest podcast, which I highly recommend if you haven't listened to it before. It's cold out, sorry. Overcrest podcast is kind of about a variety of different things automotive related. They talk about the future of automotive. There is some Tesla bashing, which isn't the best, but it is what it is, and they're good guys. They're actually out of Minneapolis, and they have some really cool stories they share from themselves and from others. So highly recommend checking it out. I'll link it somewhere, and you can listen to it. Here I am in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. This is the last stop in Oklahoma before we get to Texas. And I actually just walked over here to this gas station because it is right about midnight, and I drove by this drive-thru and it lists beer for drive-thru, which is strange. So just came to check it out, use the restroom, maybe grab a snack, probably a Cliff Bar, just some energy to have. It is still 30 degrees out, so yeah, it's cold. I probably should have grabbed my jacket because the supercharger is over there somewhere. But a fairly decent walk from to the gas station, probably block-ish, but it is what it is. I'll warm up in the gas station and then walk back. All right, so I misspoke. We actually have one more stop in Oklahoma at Weatherford, Oklahoma. Looks like we do have to be here a little while. Let's see how far it is to the next one. That is the last one before Texas. Looks like it's 98 miles, but I'll probably need to get up to like 60-65% or so. So I'll probably be here half hour, started at 9%, already up to 14%. Might try and get a few Z's and rest up a little bit and kind of refresh myself, but go from there. Gonna kind of just keep pushing through. There is a hour 10 stop in Albuquerque, but that won't be till about 11 a.m. So we'll see how I'm doing at this point. I have had quite a bit of caffeine, but we'll see. Old gas station, actually on old Route 66. We are barely in Texas here. And what's cool is that the superchargers, they're actually right behind this building. It's the Chamber of Commerce for Shamrock, Texas. There are the superchargers. Just want to get some photos of my car, which is a pretty cool building. So, great state of Texas there. Just wanted to give a little bit of a trip update here. Just being that we are in Shamrock, Texas. We crossed over the 1,000-mile mark, so 1,022. We've been charging for a little bit here. We're at 35%. Yeah, papers pretty quickly on this car. Looks like we've got 798 miles left. Next stop is Amarillo, Texas. So we've got Amarillo, Tucumcari, Santa Rosa, Albuquerque, Gallup, Holbrook, Payson, and then then I probably will stop at one of the Phoenix Superchargers depending on what time I arrive, just to have some charge. But I do actually have charging on my Airbnb. But we will see how things go. I think I'm gonna try and doze off for a little bit because it looks like I probably have another half hour here and go from there. Just wanted to kind of show you guys, we've got a full moon, which is always good for middle of the night driving. It is almost 5 a.m. right now. And then, not sure if you guys can really tell, but there are a ton of windmills. That's what all those flashing red lights are. So, just kind of want to show that. Just headed to Amarillo, Texas. Looks like we'll be there about 5:50 in the morning. Yeah. All right, we made it to Amarillo, Texas. Looks like our next stop is Tucumcari, New Mexico. We did make it into Amarillo with 3%. I thought I was gonna arrive with 4%, but I actually kind of struggled to find how to get into this parking lot. It's kind of a weird little complex. There's a movie theater over there you can't really see because it's dark. But the parking lots aren't connected, so I had to do a loop that burned up another 1% of the battery, but whatever, it's fine. Looks like Tucumcari is about 106 miles, so I'm gonna have to charge up to probably 70% or so. Yeah, might play on my iPad, watch TV or something, and go from there. Just about to New Mexico. We're starting to get into kind of desert territory, which is kind of cool. Sun is rising, or has mostly risen behind us, so we are headed west. Traffic's moving pretty good. Not a whole lot longer. I believe we're 600-700 miles out from Phoenix. We have now crossed into New Mexico, land of enchantment apparently. So we are almost to Tucumcari. Looks like I'm at 3% battery, projecting we'll arrive with 2%. Very close. Looks like this one is actually at a Love's Travel stop, which I really like having superchargers at gas stations, especially when they're in the middle of nowhere or don't have very much else around them. Being that gas stations are almost always 24/7, especially the truck stop style ones. Usually have a good variety of different snacks and stuff. Bathrooms are usually fairly clean. I don't know, I like that for quick in and out at road trips, but in more urban areas, I think it makes more sense at grocery stores or things like that. So just a little input on my thoughts on supercharger placement. But anyway, we'll be there soon. If there's anything of value, I'll take some video, but otherwise, go there, hit the road again, and keep going. All right, so we just got to Tucumcari, which I'm fairly certain I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, but turns out I was mistaken. It's actually not at a truck stop, it's at a Holiday Inn hotel. It's got pull-in stalls, which seem to be fairly common in this region, which is kind of weird, but there is a gas station right there, which is kind of nice. I'm probably gonna run over there, use the restroom, maybe grab a snack or something. Maybe get some Taco Bell breakfast. We'll see. So up ahead here, at some point over the night, I did pass this giant cow on a trailer, and it was too dark and I wasn't fast enough to get a video of it. But now that I'm apparently passing it again because they're going fairly slow or maybe stop for the night, I needed to get a video, and it is just ridiculous. Must be for some sort of fair or something. So yeah, just things you see when you're driving through New Mexico. Santa Rosa, New Mexico, kind of right off the highway here. This is a pretty quick jaunt. This is a little bit of a weird install. They've got 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B over there, and then they've got 3B and 3A over here, but those are all pull installs. These two are back in, so I'm suspecting that these were probably added at a later date, so I pulled in over here, hoping to get optimal charge rate. I'm guessing those might have been installed early on, and then maybe they expanded, but not entirely sure. Probably gonna walk over to the gas station over there, maybe whip out my Segway. We'll see. And or actually there's a Pilot over there, so I don't know. I'll figure out something. Got to spend about 55 minutes here to make it to, I believe, Gallup or maybe Albuquerque, one of the two, and then we'll be back on the road. Car is pretty dirty, which is whatever, but I guess that's what happens with snow and ice on the roads. So, yep. All right, so sometimes when you're driving a Tesla, you get a little excited and you drive a little too quickly and you burn up some range too fast. So sometimes you end up having to sit behind a semi for a little bit to regain some efficiency. So I've actually been behind the semi for a little while. The kind of rolling hills help a bit too. But before that, I was averaging about 450, 500 watt hours per mile, but now I am right about 300. So it's making a huge difference. For a while, I had a deficit between my projected range and my actual miles remaining, but now I have a 10-mile surplus, so I'll probably just keep drafting because may as well, it'll reduce my charge time at the next stop. But yeah, such is life in a Tesla sometimes, especially when you have a shorter range vehicle. So always buy the most battery you can afford. You'll be happier. It's way easier. Made it to Albuquerque, pulled in at 5%. So totally fine. Drafting a semi, got 193 watt hours per mile. Let's see if hopefully this works since it's kind of wonky. That's a good sign. Nice touch. Tesla Owners United Kingdom. So they're visiting from afar. Car's getting pretty dirty from all the salt on the roads and all the crap. Another Applebee's charger next to a Holiday Inn Express. So Tesla must have some sort of partnership with them, but definitely not my favorite amenities for a supercharger. These are in pretty rough shape. It's like someone hit this one. Someone definitely hit this one. Bottom of the case is fairly damaged, but I tend to prefer the back-end chargers rather than the pull-ins. I like showing off my car and I like how it looks backed in, so that's what I do. Well, anyway, I'm gonna figure out something to eat, maybe nap for a little bit, then hit the road to Gallup, New Mexico, and then into Arizona. Here we are coming out of Albuquerque, headed to Gallup. So it's a little bit of a long journey. It's about 145 miles from Albuquerque to Gallup Supercharger. So taking a little bit slower so I don't have to pace or anything towards the end. So figure just kind of go the speed limit a little under and just call it good. So right now I'm cruising at 70 and actually averaging 265 watt hours per mile, which is really fantastic. That's basically Model 3 efficiency in a Model S. So we will see how it goes. If I end up having a large buffer towards the end, I'll actually probably end up speeding up because why not? So yeah. Made it to Gallup, New Mexico, and we only have 2 more stops until get to Phoenix, Arizona. This should be about a 25-minute stop. Probably just hang out in the car. There's not really a whole lot around here. It's at a hotel parking lot, but it's on the opposite side of the highway from a lot of the other amenities on this island. Or not island, exit. I've never seen supercharging signs like this with a 2-hour parking, which is a little weird, but kind of makes sense. And they did this like double post thing with the 4 stalls. So, must be a pretty low volume station, but here we are at Gallup and get back on the road as soon as possible. All right, one of the last supercharging stops. We are in Holbrook, Arizona. This one's at a Burger King. It's just a small 4-stall. Nothing too crazy. Kind of feels like it's in the middle of nowhere-ish. All plugged in now. There's only one entrance to this parking lot, which is a little annoying. I pulled into the wrong spot. Might run in, get an Impossible Whopper, but also gonna get in and out once I'm in Phoenix, so we'll see. But you can see the pretty Arizona sunset, or start of a sunset anyway. All right, so just walking back to the car after getting some Starbucks. This is actually the last Supercharger stop before getting to Phoenix in Payson, Arizona. I needed some caffeine to make it through before I head to my Airbnb, which has graciously allowed me to use 240-volt charging. I'm actually gonna stop at In-N-Out Burger because we don't have that in Minnesota. So really looking forward to some animal-style fries and animal-style grilled cheese. Now that we're in Phoenix, decided to go for a hike at Camelback Mountain. I'm doing the Echo Canyon Trail. Well, we are back on the road, headed to Minnesota slowly. Departing from Phoenix metro area, just left my Airbnb. Not entirely sure where I'm gonna end up. Just kind of hitting the road. First stop will be Casa Grande, Arizona. Just kind of want to hit as many superchargers as I can. Go a route that I normally wouldn't take, just being that I have the time to do so. A tentative plan, kind of down through Texas, through Austin, over to Louisiana even, maybe hit Nashville, and then go north to Minnesota, but really just trying to avoid the boringness of the Great Plains and make it about the journey rather than the destination. Actually at the Casa Grande, Arizona Supercharger at Culver's, but there's an In-N-Out Burger across the street, so I am going there instead. Pulled in at 72%, so really don't need to charge here, but being that I'm taking the long route back, I kind of want to add as many superchargers as I can, hit as many. I'm trying to get to 100 unique supercharger stops, and right now I'm at 57, so we'll see how close I get to that on this trip. Otherwise, when I actually move to Arizona, I should get pretty close. Also brought out my Segway for the first time this trip, and there's the always lovely In-N-Out burger. Made it to the Tucson, Arizona Urban Supercharger. It's at a outdoor shopping center place here. Just a brief stop, just wanted to add another supercharger to the list. Don't really need to charge here, so we're headed to the 150 kilowatt other Tucson supercharger to actually get some charge and get back on the road. Quick stop at the Tucson, Arizona supercharger. Headed to Wilcox, Arizona. Let's see how far that one is. 68 miles, so I'm at 60%. That'll be an easy drive. Currently projecting 16%. Might run and use the bathroom just because I'm here and get a little bit more charge. And then back on the road. Car's driving great. Just helped out another person here. They're actually renting this Model S, and she was using a paper towel to clean off some bugs on the front bumper, and I quickly stopped her and offered some quick detailer spray. So always trying to be a good Samaritan at the superchargers and help out people that don't necessarily know as much about their cars. But yeah, enjoying the drive. It's kind of chilly out, even though it's 56 degrees, but whatever. I'm in my car at 70 degrees and nice and comfy. Currently in Wilcox, Arizona. Just boring stop, middle of nowhere, gas station, hotel. So I'm just taking a brief nap here. We've got another about 20% to gain on charge. I didn't feel like getting out of my car while it's raining to grab a pillow, so I'm just using a sweater that I could grab and just leaning back and relaxing for a little bit. Running into some rain, headed to Deming, New Mexico. A little annoying because autopilot isn't as good in the rain, especially on an AP1 car, but at least once you get it kind of latched onto the lanes, it works. But still, especially with a lot of these semis, they're putting out quite a bit of spray from the road. But we'll make it. Looks like 125 miles, hour 47 minutes to Deming, New Mexico, and then that will be the only stop in New Mexico before we get to Texas. Well, we have run into snow in New Mexico. It switched pretty much instantly from rain to snow, so I'm glad I have my Nokian WRG3 all-weather tires, which are actually triple peak snowflake rated, so they are good to be used as winter tires. So let's see how this goes. Hopefully it's short-lived, and even if it's not, I'm going to be going south into Texas pretty soon after this supercharger, so I'm not too worried about it. But pretty big flakes coming down. Made it to Deming, New Mexico. This is the only New Mexico stop that we have. Pulled in at 1%. There's quite a bit of snow on the road. It's pretty slushy, gross. I had a couple times that autopilot wouldn't let me use it, but here we are, charging up. And looks like our next stop El Paso, Texas. Looks like we've got to charge about 50%. I'll probably charge 60, 65%, especially with the current road conditions, just to be on the safe side. Let's see how this ramps up here. Do have a fairly warm pack at 92 degrees. And this is a 2015 Model S 70D with about 138,000 miles on it. So, still fairly respectable charge rate. So headed to El Paso, Texas, out of New Mexico, and it's snowing pretty good here. There's good snow on the road. I am very grateful to have winter tires on the car. Made it to El Paso, Texas. Definitely was an interesting leg with quite a bit of snow on the New Mexico side, but now we're in Texas and time to just pound down the pavement and make it all the way to South Padre Island, being that that's where I decided I'm going to be spending, not this night, but tomorrow night. I'm actually going to drive through this night. So right now it is Tuesday at 9:40 p.m. and yeah, just going to keep on the road. I just had a Red Bull, got some Cliff Bars, and that should be enough to sustain me, and then I'll get to South Padre, I think, early afternoon, and that will be good. Pulling into the Van Horn, Texas Supercharger. Pretty uneventful drive, nice and fast. Was going a little above the speed limit most of the way. Gotta love Texas speed limit of 80 miles per hour, but here we are. These Superchargers are at a Hampton Inn. So let's back in here. Need to wipe off the backup camera. It's getting a little covered in schmutz. That's how you know you did it right. Pulling in at 3%, it's 33 degrees outside. Pretty decent efficiency given the speed I was going. Pack is nice and warm, 104 degrees. There's some snow on the ground here in Texas. Looks like there's a stall down there. That's usually the somewhat universal way of indicating that a stall is down. Actually, judging by the lights being off on both of these pedestals, looks like 4A and 4B are down. You can see the lights on the pedestals are on the rest of these. But otherwise, looks like pretty decent spot. There's not a whole lot near here, unfortunately, and being that it's 1 a.m., I don't know if the front office for the hotel is. So it looks like I'll just be chilling in my car, probably take a little nap, rest my eyes, maybe watch TV, who knows. And just get back on the road. Back on the road to Fort Stockton, Texas. Feel like we're in warp drive here just with all the snow that's happening right now. So glad I kind of woke up there. I took almost a 2-hour nap, so I'm feeling pretty refreshed and hoping to outrun the snow system, because I really don't like driving in the snow that much. And I'm good at it being from Minnesota, but if I can avoid it, I absolutely will. Alright, so we are charging successfully at Fort Stockton, Texas. It's at a Flying J location. Looks like there's actually some police just hanging out there, as they do at 4:30 in the morning here. This is an interesting one, being that the in-car nav actually shows this as a temporary closure of this entire station. but clearly that's not the case because I'm charging here successfully. Was over 100 kilowatts, but now tapering down. There are some signs on both 3A and 3B there from the Flying J management, but those are down. The rest seem to be working just fine. So 1, 2, and 4 stalled, but the 3A and 3B are down. I really like gas station supercharger locations, just being that they're usually 24/7, especially these truck stop style ones. They usually have pretty good facilities. They're chill if you just go and use the bathroom, and you don't necessarily have to buy anything, though I usually try to. Otherwise, I think I'm gonna rest a little bit while it's still dark out and be ready to hit the road. Looks like as of right now, it is projecting it will arrive in South Padre Island about 5 o'clock. So, hoping to beat that time a little bit. It'd be nice to get there before sunset, or at least have some additional time just to be able to explore a little bit, but we shall see. Just wanted to clarify about why I took the risk, even though the in-car nav shows a temporary closure for the Fort Stockton location. So I actually looked on PlugShare, which if you don't have that and you're driving an electric car, you're doing something wrong because it's fantastic. Multiple people had reported that exactly what I experienced, that the 3 stalls were down, but the rest of them were fully functioning. Looks like it's been this way for about 2 months, so Tesla really needs to get on that and correct it on the in-car nav, so that way people that aren't necessarily as in the know as someone like me or an experienced road tripper, they know that they can actually stop here and they don't have to take a detour or spend a while at one of the previous superchargers depending on which direction they're going. So just a tip, download PlugShare, and also Tesla, update your nav. Didn't film anything when I arrived at Ozana, Texas, but just departed there, headed to Junction, Texas. Pretty uneventful stop. Not much there, it's just a hotel and everything else is pretty far away, so I just hung out my car, played on my phone, and yeah, now I'm back on the road. Junction, Texas, looks like we'll be there in about 88 miles. Just got off the exit in Junction, Texas. Pulled in at 5%, it's 41 degrees outside, which is pretty manageable. We're 0.1 miles away, projected range here of 9 miles, so we did all right. Pack is nice and warm, 107 degrees. Looks like the actual supercharger is just right around the exit here, waiting at a red light. Looks like typical small town, truck stop style town. Not a whole lot going on here, but next stop after this will be San Antonio, so it's gonna be nice to be in a little bit bigger town, maybe actually have some amenities around it. I think this one's just at a truck stop, so it's just gonna be another one hanging out. I do have some TV shows and stuff on my iPad that I might watch, so we'll see. Otherwise, maybe some YouTube, because I haven't really been watching much content this past week, just being so busy and being out and about so much. But another red light, so I'll plug in and we'll go from there. Get back on the road. We are now headed to San Antonio, Texas, about 104 miles, a little over an hour and a half, probably gonna be under an hour and a half with my driving, but yeah, here we go. about to the San Antonio Supercharger. This is a huge metro area. I was just kind of looking at the map, and it's kind of cool because it's a giant circle of a city, essentially. Let's see if I can see it. So, like that. So, kind of cool. Might explore a little bit. Otherwise, might just go to the Supercharger and then hit the road. We are here in San Antonio, Texas. Just pulled in. It's kind of in a little shopping center here. Quite a few amenities around here, but this is kind of cool. You can actually order from your phone and then have it delivered to your car. So in case there's inclement weather or you're just feeling lazy, you can actually just do that. Just driving through San Antonio now, headed to the Three Rivers, Texas Supercharger. Ended up getting some Starbucks at the San Antonio Supercharger, rode my Segway about a mile away. Turns out getting back, I took a different route than I went there, and it was a little tricky because there wasn't a direct route from the sidewalk, and yeah, I should have just gone back the way I came, but Google Maps said it was a walking way, but really wasn't. Well, we made it to Three Rivers Supercharger. Looks like it was about 85 miles from San Antonio to Three Rivers. Looks like it's showing negative 22% as of right now. We've gained about 6 or 7% since arrival. So, charging decently fast considering my state of charge. Let's see how many miles it is. So, Three Rivers to Kingsville, looks like 88 miles. So, we'll charge up to about 65, 70%. And we're at 34% right now. It's getting warmer as we go south here. Pretty decent spot here. We've got a McDonald's and a Love's travel stop, so I definitely am a fan of 24-hour amenities like that at a supercharger. We've got some friends here. Essentially the newer spec of my car, Midnight Silver with white interior instead of the gray interior like mine has. And there is a nicely modified aftermarket wheels. I think those are Vossens maybe, with chrome delete white, and it's a sunroof car, so not super common. Yeah, we'll hang out here, enjoy the nice weather, probably walk around. I'm starting to get a little stiff from all the time in the car, but yeah. Had a nice stop in Three Rivers, Texas. Met some other owners, both actually Model S 100D people. Kind of from the area, but being that it's Texas, everything is huge. So even though they were from Texas, they weren't from the Three Rivers area. One was heading towards Austin, one was heading back to San Antonio. And the Austin guy actually wasn't very familiar with how the in-car navigation with the route planning and supercharger stops work. So helped him with that and kind of explained that he can skip the stop if he wants. He'll just have to wait longer here, or he could go to the next supercharger and just have a brief stop there. So he made the decision to take a longer stop at the Three Rivers versus stopping at Victoria, I think it was. I can't remember the name. But anyway, left Three Rivers, headed to Kingsville, which is going to be the last stop before headed to South Padre Island. It's a pretty unique install at South Padre Island. It's actually a urban supercharger, but the pallet portable style, but in a somewhat permanent install. We'll see if they ever develop that into a B3 or maybe a actual stall setup versus just a pallet install. But it's a single cabinet with 3 heads, and it's the urban style heads, and that's it. It's on an island, and that was kind of the allure of going there, as well as I figured if I'm on this long road trip, I may as well stop at the ocean, just being that it wasn't super far out of the way, and a couple hundred miles on a 4,000 or 5,000 mile road trip really doesn't matter that much. So wanted to stop there. Airbnb was cheap. I think it was like $35 for the night, and it was a pretty nice little like boutique hotel thing on Airbnb. So it's a place to sleep, place to shower, and then get back on the road in the morning. I'm gonna see if I can get to Nashville. I'm not 100% sure how far that is from South Padre Island, but while I'm charging on South Padre, I'm gonna kind of play with nav and see where a good stopping point will be. I'm thinking somewhere around the 20 to 23 hour driving mark
or maybe somewhere closer if it's appealing. I'd be willing to stop sooner, but when I'm on a trip like this, I want to kind of drive about 20 hours straight and then have a full rest in an actual bed, because when I'm driving for 23 hours straight, I tend to just take a nap or two at Superchargers, especially since with the Model S 70D, I usually have some long stops along the way. So most of my stops are about 30 minutes, 35, 40. But some of them do end up being a little over an hour, and those are the perfect opportunity to take a little bit of a nap. So even though if the car is only requiring about an hour, sometimes I'll turn those into an hour and 20, which will then shorten the next stop. And it's not quite as efficient, but as far as overall efficiency, it works out quite well. So yes, I'm pushing the supercharging higher than is really that great as far as speeds, but we shall see. Yeah, next stop will be Kingsville and then on to South Padre. Made it to the Kingsville, Texas Supercharger. It's the last stop before we get to South Padre Island. I walked over here to this Starbucks that I saw on my way in. Did not see the coming soon sign, so I guess I'm walking back to my car, probably just hang out there. This Supercharger's at a Holiday Inn Express, which a lot of them are at, so probably just run in, use the bathroom, and then hang out in my car. I'm planning on probably going to the Space Museum in Houston tomorrow, so kind of just planning out my route, seeing as far as timing goes. Already arranged for late check-in at my hotel Airbnb in South Padre Island. Probably just grab some food there, walk around on the beach. Basically just crashing there. Wanted to see the ocean, figured why not add a little bit to the trip and see the ocean. I've never been to the Gulf of Mexico before. You can see the hotel that this Supercharger is at. My car all the way over there. You can kind of maybe see it. Yeah, there you can see it peeking through. And then there's the Starbucks that's not yet open, which is very disappointing because I was really hoping for some coffee. As I was walking over here, I opened the mobile app to try and order ahead, since I sometimes do a complicated drink and it's easier, and it wasn't showing up. And then I got closer and saw that there was a coming soon sign. All right, we're getting close to being done charging. This is a little bit of a long segment of the trip, so need to charge up as much as possible. I'll probably leave as soon as I'm done recording this here because we should be good. But you can see BMS voltages here, so my pack is still quite healthy. At 100% I would still be close to 4.2 volts per cell, so definitely good. Just kind of planning out the rest of this trip here. So I'll be spending the night in South Padre Island, and then I'm trying to avoid going through the same boring route that I went before, which was through Oklahoma, Missouri, Iowa, or yeah, something like that. Iowa, Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, all those boring flat states. So I added a waypoint here. I'm wanting to go to the Space Museum in Houston, Texas. So out of South Padre Island, we'll go through actually the charger that we're at right now, which is Kingsville. That's that one there. Victoria. There's two in the Houston area that we'll stop at just for shorter stops. Kind of bypass New Orleans here, through Baton Rouge, then up through Jackson, Mississippi, through Memphis. I was gonna do a detour through Nashville, but I just don't really have the time for that. I'd like to be home roughly before the weekend, and it's Wednesday evening right now. And just with the amount of driving that we need to do, it's just not looking quite feasible, and country music isn't really my thing anyway, so I can avoid that. Then up through Illinois, bypass Chicago metro area here, and then up and northwest towards Minneapolis and my home. So I'm using a better route planner here. It's a pretty nice tool. I generally use the in-car nav for when I'm actually driving, but a better route planner gives you a really good idea of kind of a tentative route and allows you to add waypoints, which the car navigation does not. So that kind of helps you plan your charging around if you have additional non-charging destinations that you want to add on. So I find it a really useful tool. It's also very configurable. You can do a whole lot of different things. It tells you times. You can change actually the start time. So I can figure out what start time I need to do, and then in order to arrive at a reasonable time. So I'm kind of debating if Space Center Houston even makes sense, because I think they're not open that late. Let's see what time they're open till. So tomorrow is Thursday. They'd be only open till 5 p.m. And it looks like we would arrive there about 3 p.m. roughly, because this is only an estimate, and I don't know if I'll get on the road right at 6 a.m. because I'm not really that much of a morning person. I mean, that would definitely save time, but the Space Center would be cool. So we'll see how things go. I'd love to stop, but also would love to kind of get home at this point, but still see all the sights along the way. Almost to South Padre Island. We're about 13 miles away, 17 minutes. This is not quite the drive I was expecting. It's actually pretty darn boring and kind of regretting coming this way. Added a few hundred miles to the route, and I feel like I'm going to be disappointed, especially since it's not even sunny out. So a beach is going to be not that exciting, but too late now, and we'll make the most of it. I did find a brewery while I was at the last Supercharger. I was just kind of browsing what's around, and looks like it's a pretty decent brewery. Has some food, has veggie burgers. So it's 8 blocks from the hotel I'm staying at, which is 2 miles from the Supercharger, and there's actually free like trolley tram thing on the island, but we'll see how the weather is, and I might walk around while my car is supercharging after I go to the hotel to see if there's 110 on the outside, because if there's 110 on the outside, I won't have to stay at the Supercharger very long, being that I'll gain probably 10-15% overnight on 110 even. And then yeah, probably just leave my car at the hotel plugged in on 110, and then Segway or walk or take the tram trolley thing to the brewery not too far away. So we shall see. Did want to point out, it's really strange how this Supercharger lists on the navigation. It's only a 2-stall 72 kilowatt urban style Supercharger. You'll see what I mean. I saw some pictures on PlugShare, and it looks really interesting. It's kind of a temporary type install, but yet it's a seemingly permanent install. So we shall see. It was showing that only 1 stall was available, so there is another Tesla on the island. Maybe I'll run into them, but looks like they're gone now, so we shall see. And I'm kind of just going for the experience of charging at a Supercharger on an island. It's not too often you can say that you've charged your Tesla on an island in the Gulf of Mexico. And even if I'm there for one night, the Airbnb was less than $40, so I'm not really too worried about it. Alright, so this is definitely without a doubt the most strange Supercharger install I've ever seen. So we do have a single cabinet there. Let's look at the output here. So it's 2 times 72 kilowatt output, 200 amp. It does have 3 heads on it, which is a little weird, but this one's taped, so they've got this one set up for back in. They've got one that you pull in. I'm on the pull-in one since that one's iced. And it's wired in permanently, which is a little strange for such a temporary looking setup, but it seems to work, and it's really strange how it displays on the car screen. It's only 72 kilowatts. And this is the only Supercharger here. It's not like this is an extension to all to increase capacity. So we are pulling 70 kilowatts there. We've added 2 kilowatts already since I plugged in. Hasn't updated that I'm using one install. Oh, there we go. And yeah, it's 2 stalls, and we're charging at a Supercharger on an island in South Padre, Texas. Yeah. Just headed out from my Airbnb on South Padre Island, and definitely just bottomed out on the battery on pulling out there. Not ideal, but good thing there's the skid plates on the bottom of a Model S battery. Pretty nice out. I'm trying to find the ocean here just to kind of have a better idea of where things are here. And then I'll probably head back through Kingsville and then up to maybe Houston. I guess we'll see how I feel and what time we'll maybe arrive if I go to the Space Center. I'd really like to go there, but also it's, I don't know. We'll see. Well, we found the ocean. Turns out there's not really any spot you can park and have your car near the ocean, but found a spot and just kind of wandering, enjoying the ocean and breeze and the sun, and it's pretty beautiful here, but I do want to hit the road and kind of get back to the Supercharger. Currently stopped so that a turbine blade can turn. Headed to Kingsville, Texas. You don't fully realize just how massive those generator turbines are until you see the blades and the other parts driving by you or stopped at a rest stop. Made it to Kingsville, Texas. Decided I want some breakfast, so there is an IHOP up here. Past the Starbucks that I discovered is not yet open when I was here yesterday. So probably grab some breakfast, maybe some coffee or something, just to kind of have some fuel for the day. I was looking at their menu. Looks like they have the Southwest Scramble, which sounds pretty good. Some eggs, hash browns, guacamole, stuff like that. When I'm on a road trip, I tend to stick to a little bit higher protein diet than I normally do, just for the more sustained energy, especially when I'm going 20, 30 hours up at a time with just some naps. So gonna get some IHOP. Haven't had IHOP in who knows how long, but it's what's around here and within walking distance, so that's what I'm getting. Well, just got pulled over in Texas by Highway Patrol. Guy was pretty friendly. Got a written warning. Didn't say a speed. My radar detector did go off, but the way he kind of came flying up on me, I don't think he actually got a reading, or he probably would have given me a ticket, but whatever, got lucky, going the speed limit until Victoria, and then just trying to get out of the state of Texas. But Texas is a huge state, so that's going to take quite a while. I think I'm going to end up going through Houston, but I still haven't fully decided what route to take, other than I'm kind of taking it supercharger by supercharger. Just hanging out in Victoria, Texas, watching some Martin Garrix's YouTube, and actually starting to get some of the clips together for the video that I'm going to be making of this whole trip. Looks like I can head out here. Just going to do a quick stop in Richmond, Texas, and then headed to the North Houston Supercharger, which is actually at a service center. So that'll be kind of nice to hang out at a service center versus just hanging out in my car or wherever. So gonna hit the road here, go a little slower this time, maybe stick to 5 over instead of what I was doing, just for sake of not getting a ticket and not getting pulled over again. So yeah, let's hit the road again. Just arrived at the Richmond, Texas Supercharger. Just now starting to taper down below 100 kilowatts at 11%, which is a lot higher than usual, but battery is very warm, 118 degrees. Just having a brief stop here because then we're headed to the North Houston Supercharger. That one's actually at a service center, so that's kind of cool. And probably a little better spot to hang out. According to PlugShare, there's a lounge that's open till 7. Maybe it's this one? I think it's actually that one. I'll have to double check. But either way, it's at a service center, and that should be a good spot to hang out. Maybe get a little info from the locals. And yeah, this is a really good charge session here at this supercharger. Over 90, even at 13%. Usually my rule of thumb is charge rate plus state of charge equals 100, and that's normal, but this is higher than that, so I'm certainly not complaining. So yeah, should be a pretty quick stop here. Currently driving through the outskirts of Houston, Texas, and there's a lot of traffic because it's 4:52 p.m. Yeah, not all that pleasant, but so is life, I guess. Well, this is the first time on this entire trip that I have waited in line at a supercharger. This is only a 6 stall, and it's actually at a service center. When I got here, there were 2 cars ahead of me. Probably been here less than 5 minutes, and I'm already next one up here. So just hoping I get decent charge rates once I get on a stall, but not entirely too worried about it. Just about to wrap up here in Huntsville, Texas, headed to Corsicana, Texas. This is a little bit of an interesting supercharger stop. Had a Model 3 towed in beside me. They were at 0%. Luckily, their 12-volt was still active, so they didn't have to jump it in order to get into it or anything like that. So they were able to just plug in, have it work supercharging. Did take about 5 minutes before it moved off of 0%. So they had used a fair bit of the battery reserve, and I had to replenish that before it could actually start adding usable capacity. But it kind of gave a little bit of a lesson. Being that she's from Texas, she's probably never encountered colder or fairly cold temperatures and how to drive efficiently in a Tesla in that. So she was running her HVAC on high, which is very inefficient, as well as on manual. So definitely uses a lot of battery doing that and can significantly impact your range on a Tesla. So showed her that, showed her the energy display, as well as the trip view and the consumption view to know and have a better idea of what her actual driving range is. And then also how to use the navigation and see the round trip and arrival percentage. So always like to help out other Tesla owners when I can and help them avoid embarrassing moments, both for themselves, tow truck drivers, and for the brand as a whole. Working on editing the video here in Corsicana, Texas. Headed to South Lake, Texas next, and then off to Denton, Texas for some In-N-Out burgers. So yeah, just working on editing the video, making the most of the time at the Supercharger. We are at Collins Street Bakery in Corsicana, Texas. They offer promo for Tesla drivers, so I really wish I was here while they were open. I am currently riding my Segway from the Denton, Texas Supercharger all the way over to In-N-Out Burger. Right there. According to Google Maps, it is half a mile away, so decided to whip out the Segway because it's a little far to walk because it's only about 35 degrees outside. So that is what we were doing. Just trying to stay as warm as I can, but it's chilly. Just pulled into the Perry, Oklahoma Supercharger. I think that was the longest jaunt of this entire road trip. 159 miles, so that's a bit of a jaunt in a 70D, especially with it being 19 degrees outside. So we pulled in at 3%, left at 97%. 4,660 miles into the trip. This is a pull-in Supercharger, so let's plug in here. These Supercharger cables, when it's cold, it's like wrangling a snake. And this parking lot, they're like craters. They're not potholes, they are basically craters. So I was here the other day on the way to Arizona, but that was in the middle of the night. But here we are, still communicating. There we go, now it's charging. So gonna stay warm, hang out at my car since there's not much else to do here. So work on some more video editing. Currently in Topeka, Kansas. This is the Arby's one again. We're kind of getting towards the home stretch of headed back to Minneapolis. We've got 4 more stops after this, and then I'll be home, just right outside of Minneapolis. Pulled in here at 9%. We're currently at 29, 30%. On the drive here, the brake pedal rubber cover actually popped off, so that was a little annoying to put back on. I did that right after I got here. Kind of had to massage the lip of the rubber around the actual plastic or metal pedal assembly. So managed to do that. I think I'm gonna head over to the Starbucks, which is over on the other side of this road here, but this is gonna be about an hour stop, so I figured I may as well grab some coffee, maybe some lunch there, and hang out for a bit, bring my laptop, and get some work done. So yeah. Currently 25 degrees in Wichita, Kansas. I am frozen, riding my Segway, waiting to cross the street after working on the video edit at Starbucks, and headed back to my car. The Supercharger should be about 95% for the longest jaunt of this entire trip, about 158 miles before the next Supercharger. There is a bailout option in Kansas City if we need it, but I don't anticipate we should need it. Got back to my car and I am frozen. Just warming up for a moment before I unplug and hit the road. Looks like the car is saying we should make it to Bethany, Missouri with 5%. I'm inclined to believe it, but I'm glad we do have some bailout options in Kansas City, especially with it being 25 degrees outside and the temperature is dropping as the sun will be going down here shortly. But yeah, just warming up. I am frozen. I should have just stayed in Arizona. Glad I'll be going back there in 2 weeks to move there because the cold and I do not get along well. We are currently on the longest leg of this entire road trip, almost 160 miles. We're about 30 miles in. It's telling me to slow down. I'm going the speed that it wants me to go, and right now we have 130 miles remaining, 144 miles projected range, so I'm feeling pretty good about it. Currently going 5 under the speed limit because the speed limit's 75 and I'm going 70, but we do have a bailout option, or actually a couple bailout options if needed, but I don't think we'll need them. So I think it's going to be faster to drive a little bit slower and then end up at the next supercharger, even if from driving slower, than it will be to take a detour and go to one of the bailout options, even if it's a quick stop there. So that's why I'm fine with driving a little slower, even though I normally like driving faster. So over the course of this trip, I've paid the Kansas Turnpike Authority over $30 just to drive on their roads. So I'm really not a fan of tolls and glad I don't live in the state of Kansas or drive through Kansas very regularly. Though I did order one of their K-tags so that way I can get discounted tolls for whenever I do go through their state, and it also works in Oklahoma and Texas. So I figure it's worth it. It doesn't cost anything to order it, but I am not a fan of tolls. They're annoying with toll plazas, and that you have to staff the plazas and have the plazas open. I just don't think they're a very good use of taxpayer money, but that's just me. Just pulled into Bethany, Missouri. Looks like we're headed to West Des Moines next. We've got 3 more superchargers after this and then home. So this jaunt will be 97 miles. Let's plug in here. Pulled in at 5%. It's 19 degrees outside. I'll show you efficiency in a second here. These supercharger cables get really stiff when it's cold out. I like to compare it to wrestling a snake. So here's our efficiency for that jaunt, 162.3 miles. So that is the longest stretch of this entire road trip. Pretty good efficiency. I was behind a semi for most of it, just being that I found a semi that was going at a reasonable speed and decided to just tuck in behind them and make it pretty stress-free. And we did cross over 5,000 miles on that leg. So I believe by the time I get home, it'll be over 5,400 miles and maybe over 2 megawatts. We'll see. I'd have to do the math, but it's possible. Just an update here, headed from Bethany, Missouri to Dow's, Iowa. Actually skipped both the Altoona and the Des Moines, Iowa supercharger. The Altoona and the West Des Moines are both in the Des Moines area, so both of them are pretty close. Right now it's saying that I'm not going to make it to Dow's, but I would argue otherwise. So it says we have 65 miles left, but based on how I'm driving, we have 71 miles of range remaining. I've been tucking in behind this semi for almost the entire way, so I'm not complaining about that. And even though it is 19 degrees outside, I'm getting better than rated efficiency at 289 watt hours per mile. So that is definitely pretty nice, and it's actually pretty relaxing driving behind a semi here, especially on autopilot, because otherwise it would be stressful, kind of hanging tight and at an equal distance, but with autopilot it makes it super easy. So I'm glad I found the semi kind of right when I got on the freeway in Bethany, Missouri, and kind of just been tucking in here the whole way. So almost immediately after I filmed that last clip, the semi pulled off, so just kind of driving slow to conserve range. All right, so we're still headed to Dow's, Iowa. We're about 11 miles away. I am at 5% charge and 14 degrees outside. Doing really well in efficiency because I slowed down to 55 miles an hour. The car thinks we will get there at 0%. It was -1%, which obviously does not work, but 0% I'm fine with. I'll just kind of coast into the supercharger and call it good, but yeah, I turned off the climate control, and with it being 14 degrees outside, it's a little chilly, but got the seat heater cranked, and I'm doing just fine, but definitely not ideal. I should have just stopped in Des Moines, but I guess I just decided to push it, so here we go. Yeah, there's the charging needed to reach destination. That's always fun. All right, so we're still going here, almost to Dow's, Iowa, at 1%, going 45 miles an hour. Heat off. Got 1.7 miles to go, 3 miles of projected range. It's saying that we'll arrive with 1%. I'm a little skeptical considering we're already at 1%, but I know we'll make it at least at this point. Worst case, I can limp it at 0% for at least a mile. So, definitely cutting it a little close, but 96-degree pack temp, so it'll still charge pretty quick. After Dow's, we're headed to Albert Lee Happy Trails Lane North. Brand new supercharger within the past few months here, but it's a little chilly in here with it being 14 degrees outside and climbing off, but seat heaters are cranked and I'm relatively comfortable. Dow's, Iowa, Travel Plaza here. We made it. 0%, 14 degrees outside, but let's get plugged in here. Pack is nice and warm. Let's see how it ramps. It is cold and windy out here. Always get some warnings when the car's very cold. There's the contact keeps going. Let's see if we get to 111. I think that might be it for right now. Once the pack voltage increases, it might ramp up a little bit again, but for now, we made it. I'm gonna hang out here. Next stop, Albert Lee, and then home. All right, about to head out from Dow's, Iowa to Albert Lee Happy Trails Lane, and showing a buffer of 16%, which I am more than comfortable with. That way I can even drive it a little bit quickly, don't have to try and get 244 watt hours per mile. But let's unplug here and get the show on the road. And then Albert Lee will actually be the last supercharged stop before home. So it'll be nice to sleep in my own bed tonight. 67% state of charge. 95 degree pack. Let's do a 0 to 60 and 0 to 100 run. All right, just here at Albert Lee Happy Trails Lane. At 70% charge, just about to head back to Minneapolis. That will be the final destination to my house. This is the last supercharging stop. And that pretty much wraps up this entire road trip. So I'll do an intro or an outro or something to add to the video as I kind of wrap it up and see what needs to be said for the video completion. But otherwise, it is 1:37 a.m. technically on Saturday, February 15th, and yeah, let's see how many miles. So 5321 miles right now. and we've got 101 miles to go, so a little over 5,400 miles in about 10 days. That's a lot of miles in a Tesla, so yeah. Made it home to my house in Minneapolis. Let's see the final stats here. Almost 5,500 miles. The car crossed over 140,000 miles. The car performed flawlessly, so I have no complaints. Arriving home with 16% charge. It's 20 degrees outside. Yeah, so gonna get some sleep and then work on editing this and getting it out. This is a little bit of a bonus round to this video. On the Friday that I got back to Minneapolis area, I actually found out that the new Alexandria, Minnesota V3 supercharger went online. It's not officially open. It's not on the in-car navigation or on Tesla's website or anything quite yet, but I have verified that it does have power. So I'm gonna head out there. Need to grab some things at Target. It's at a Target, so why not drive 2 hours away to a Target with a supercharger? Arrived there with 11%. We're departing with 95%, and get there almost 4 o'clock, but I'll probably beat that estimate a little bit. Charge up there, maybe stop at Clearwater on the way back. That's this one right here, just south of St. Cloud. Yeah, figure I don't really have much going on today on this Sunday, so may as well take a little trip. Just arrived at the new Alexandria, Minnesota supercharger. There are the cabinets there. They're V3 cabinets. There's 2 cabinets since it's an 8-stall install. Got the pack nice and warm manually via some flooring it and regen, 118 Fahrenheit cell temp average. So let's see what kind of rates we get. Gonna plug in here. Pulled in at 1% state of charge. It's 24 degrees outside. This is a new V3 install, so check out how thin these cables are. They're nice and flexible, even though it's 20 degrees outside. Pop that open. Let's see what kind of ramp we get. This is a 2015 70D, so it's not gonna get the full V3 rate, but let's just see how it goes. Looks like 110 might be the peak. Let's see if it goes a little higher, but it is holding steadier longer than usual. 111, 112. Definitely holding charge rate longer than it usually does. Well, anyway, I'm gonna keep an eye on it and see how long it stays over 100 kilowatt. All right, so while I'm supercharging here at the Alexandria, Minnesota supercharger, just wanted to kind of go over some final points here for the video to wrap it up. I do have some notes here on my iPad. So over the course of this trip, I did about 1,500 miles in Texas alone. You don't quite realize just the grand scale of Texas until you've driven kind of a giant V in the shape. So I went in from New Mexico, down all the way down to South Padre Island, and then pretty much straight north from there all the way up to Oklahoma. And that was about 1,500 miles. I believe it was 17 or 18 supercharger stops in Texas alone, which is kind of crazy. As far as cost savings with driving my Tesla with unlimited free supercharging, I'm grandfathered into that with Model S. And if I had paid for supercharging, I paid 26 cents a kilowatt hour, which is kind of a going average across the US. I would have spent over $500 on supercharging, which is still a good deal considering I did the math. And if I'd been driving a car that got 25 miles per gallon and it was $3.20 a gallon, which I would say is about what the going rate was as I was driving around, some places cheaper, some places more, that would have been over $700 in gas. And obviously that's in a car that's not as comfortable, doesn't have autopilot, and just isn't as nice for a road trip. Another point I wanted to hit, so my car has window tint. It's actually tinted at, I believe 30 or 35% with ceramic SunTech tint. And tint is kind of one of those things that a lot of people think is just for style or just because they want it and kind of to reduce visibility. But actually, it's a very functional thing to do to your car. It greatly reduces fatigue, just being that you have less light coming in to affect your eyes. It's kind of like wearing sunglasses. And I do wear sunglasses when I drive when it's light out, but just not having as much light and not having as much heat, because the ceramic tint blocks heat, it really reduces your fatigue when you're driving as much as I did in the past 10 days. My car has Nokian WRG3 all-weather tires, which are different than all-season tires. So all-weather tires are actually rated for winter use. They have a triple peak snowflake rating. And even though I wasn't really planning on encountering winter weather, I'm really glad that I had these tires on, especially in New Mexico when we got 2 or 3 inches of snow and I was driving through the middle of the night. I had a ton of confidence driving on these tires. They're great even in Minnesota winter, and I'm very glad to have them. And also I didn't feel bad driving on them when it was 70 degrees in Arizona and Texas, because they are designed to be run year round, even though they're an all-weather and winter rated. As I was driving, I only got put into autopilot jail once, and that was because I floored it to pass someone and exceeded 90, which is, if you exceed 90 while you're on autopilot, it kicks you out of autopilot for the rest of the drive. But it can be fairly easy to get put in autopilot jail. If you ignore the nags too much, then it will prompt you to no longer use autopilot the rest of the drive, and then you have to pull off, put it in park, and that's just annoying. But autopilot is really great on long trips like this. I don't think I would have done as many miles as I did in such a short time period or for such extended lengths of driving without autopilot. Just being it takes a lot of the heavy lifting of driving out of it. Almost every supercharger that I went to had maybe one other car there. Most of them, I was actually the only vehicle charging there, which I thought was pretty surprising. There were a couple instances that the station was full, or I had to wait once at the North Houston supercharger. That was only once, with I believe 58, 60, somewhere in there, supercharging stops for this entire trip. And I was pretty surprised by that, given how many Teslas are on the road, especially going through kind of the Southwest region, where there are a lot more Teslas than there are in the Midwest. Then I also just want to touch on this Model S that I'm driving. When I bought it, it was actually the cheapest autopilot equipped all-wheel drive Tesla in the country for sale. I was searching for a few months actually and found this vehicle in Vegas. Drove it from Vegas to California, and then from California drove it back to Minnesota. And even with it being the cheapest one in the country, I've had such a great experience with it. I've done very little as far as repairs or anything like that. I've replaced one door handle paddle gear, I did an alignment, I've done some tires, just some little piddly stuff here and there. But as far as reliability and just cost of ownership of this car, it's just exceedingly low. I've owned other cars with 100,000 plus, 150,000 plus, 200,000 plus, and not a single one of them has come close to this car in low cost of ownership. The only car that was even similar was the Chevy Volt that I had before this, and that was because it was under 100,000 miles. I only owned that car for about 18,000. And this Model S, I've put almost 35,000 miles on it already in 10 months. And there are very few cars I can think of that I would want to put that kind of miles on and still enjoy it and not really want to get something new. Yes, I do want to get a Model 3 Performance for faster charging and longer range, but I'd also be completely satisfied with just keeping this Model S because it's a truly fantastic car, and I really don't want to give up unlimited free supercharging because some people don't really get much benefit out of that, but with how much driving I do, I actually do get a fair amount of benefit out of that. So just want to thank you guys for watching this. Feel free to drop any comment or any questions or comments you have down below. Happy to share my experience, and get out there and drive. That's all I can say.